Sometimes in city skylines, you get bored of building the same massive city. So I thought, how about I zoom out a bit, pick a plot of land, and build a British-inspired village, similar to one that I have lived in for most of my life. So this is the plot of land, and let's get to it now. So first I'm just extending out this existing connection and running it through the area. And as you can see, this is where the town centre will be for the British inspired town. And just running the A road over the river and joining it up with the existing motorway connection across the train line. So now connecting up our A road to the motorway, we can use a bit of moving magic here just to speed up the process. And there we go, we've got a perfect connection ready for all that traffic headed to our new town. Flying on back, we're just adding a roundabout that we will connect up with slip roads just so everyone traveling to the town can use the slip roads to come off onto the roundabout and head towards the town centre. If we do a bit of a flyover now, we go over the rail line and the river, and there we can see our new roundabout with our interchange, and you can see the city in the background looking massive and majestic, and it connects up to the industrial areas and eventually the main city centre. And here we're going to branch off an A road winding through those fields and eventually leading up to another roundabout, which will help divert all that traffic into the various areas of the town. And again, just as a little route around the town, we're going to add another A road along with a roundabout just to disperse the traffic evenly, so when people enter the town, they can choose exactly which side they want to enter from. Continuing with the road layout, I was trying to remember back to when I lived in this small British town, and I was thinking of all the one-way systems that it had and the winding random road patterns because it's quite an old town. So I'm just trying to replicate that, mainly from my brain, so obviously things went very wrong. It was here when I realized I wanted the river to not be as wide, and this is where the nightmare of terraforming began, which took up a lot of my time.
A few moments later, 2,000 years later, one eternity later.
So after all that, I had some minimal effects, but I was happy with it. You can see where the tree lines were and where the riverbank was, and you can see it's a little bit skinnier now, so that's the effect I wanted. And just bridging over, connecting up the two banks of the river. So this is me going back, realizing that I've messed up the one-way system completely and just changing it so that it works more and makes sense for the traffic situation, and trying to rack my brain to remember about when I lived there, and it was slowly coming back to me, but it took a lot of thinking and a lot of mistakes. This is also me realizing that I got the one-way system the wrong way around, because obviously in the UK we drive on the left, but in this map I picked right-hand side driving, so that completely changed the situation, which is another mistake that I completely forgot about, but it wasn't too much of an issue to fix. And then yeah, I'm just moving on to the pedestrian areas and some of the winding alleyways and the riverfront. So for the first building I wanted to place in the town, I decided to go for a church, just because that's a very British thing. I feel like most towns in the UK are built around a church. So in my town, my church is placed upon a little hill. And then after that, I moved on to the high street. So for most of the buildings in this town, I used the Emerging Downtowns Content Creator Pack, and I don't know if they were going for a British style, but most of the buildings are very in keeping with a small British town, and I also went through with some European style buildings, some high density, commercial, just to make it look a little bit more European. And then adding an open air shopping centre, and they're usually very crap in these small British towns. And one thing I can't forget, a good old-fashioned big Say-Nos right in the centre of town, where all the old ladies go to pick up all of their shopping for the week, and where all the youths just steal everything that they want and nothing happens to them. So just running some more pedestrian paths through the open air shopping centre, and then filling out the high street a little bit more, just to integrate the massive building so that it looks like it fits a little more snugly. So now I'm adding a local hotel for anyone who comes to visit the town. And of course, it's got to be a seedy old travel lodge that always smells of weed. I really enjoyed playing with this content creator pack, because some of these smaller buildings really look like little off licenses or corner shops, and I think it was just a really good style for trying to build an authentic looking British town. So using a raised pedestrian path to cover up some of the areas I don't want to be seen from above in the open air shopping mall, and also making it a bit more reminiscent of the one in my hometown, and just also filling in some of the areas with a few more buildings. Also adding a parking lot, because every shopping centre needs a big fat parking lot right by it. And then filling in a few extra buildings and connecting up the parking lot with a one-way road. So now I'm just painting the pedestrian district and adding the service point to service all the buildings down the main high street, and just adjusting some of the nodes on this intersection. And I like to think of this as a pub, although I think the scale is a bit wrong, but I'll take it as a pub, and then drawing some paths just to fill in this last section of the high street. And in my mind, this is a town hall, and then just adding some very British looking houses behind. So after filling all of that in, I think it's time for a little break. So we'll definitely come back to that area in the future, but everyone knows if you're building a British town, you've got to have a few of these dotted around the area. So now heading on over to an area that I'm just extending some roads out from the one-way system, and this will be where our train station sits, and it sits slightly higher than the road just so we can bridge over the road, and then ultimately it will cross the river as well. So I just had to adjust the roads quickly, and then yeah, we're curving it round to follow the road. I had a very specific idea of the kind of bridge I wanted for the rail tracks to cross the river, and there was nothing like it for the train lines, so I had to go with this road bridge, and I just am manipulating the heights and the distances between the arches using Move It. And then, yeah, I've just run the tracks across the road bridge, and I think in the end it gives the look that I wanted. Extending the train line out, we need one more bridge to cross this road. Adjusting the heights so that the slope for the trains is not too large. Looking ahead to where I can join up the tracks to the main system, and then jumping over to the outskirts of my main city where I am bridging over from one of the train stations near the edge of my city and providing a connection to the town. Jumping back to the town, I'm looking around at what I can build next, and I think I can fill in this area opposite the church, which is where I'm going to place some office buildings, where people who live in the town can work if they don't want to commute to the main city, and just adding little pathways to connect to the high street, down little alleyways, and having one central office building in the middle, with lots of smaller ones surrounding. Continuing on with this smaller section of High Street, I'm just repeating the techniques I used for the main High Street section, and also adding a local grocery store and a car park for that grocery store and the wider town area. Adding a local cinema. I did want the cinema to be smaller and more of a theatre type vibe, but this was one of the only assets I had, as I'm working with mainly vanilla assets. But I still think I managed to incorporate it in well with a few taller European buildings so it doesn't look too out of place, and then just extending the pedestrian zoning. So now filling in this little 2-lane road going down to the bridge, and I really did enjoy making this little road because of the gradient changes, and I like the way that the buildings kind of follow the road as it goes down the hill, and the height changes really make it look like a quaint little British road. So I'm just whizzing about all over the place, making little changes and tweaks to the pedestrian roads before I head back and start building the little housing estate behind the road I just built. Yeah, I'm jumping back and forth between areas, doing a bit of detailing. Not much consistency for you guys, sorry about that, but I don't really have a plan when I go into these builds. I just kind of do what comes naturally, and I see a space I'm not happy with, and I go back and fix it. So here we go, we're adding housing to the little cul-de-sac that I built behind the high street. I'm just repeating these little houses because I think it looks very British to repeat the same house, as seems like it's all been built in one go. So now I'm just fencing off the parking area behind the grocery store and the high street, and adjusting the roads and using a bit of surface painter. And of course adding some bins and decals to make the area look not the nicest, because it wouldn't be in in a small little town. Often they're not well looked after. Coming to the other section over the road, I'm just again repeating the same techniques. I'm loving using these buildings from the content creator pack. And mixing modern and old, I think, is very realistic for building a town like this. In my mind, this little building could be a pub, and since I'm using it as a pub, I'm just going to add a small little parking lot. I do like splicing in some of these European buildings just to add a bit more height, and there are a few of these dotted around that have survived in British towns. And now I'm just building a larger grocery store, again with a car park out the back. I think I need to revisit this area and add a few decals, because at the moment it looks a bit too clean. There's too much clean concrete. I need to go in with some dirt decals, some tire marks, just to make it a little bit more realistic. So jumping to this area, we need some more housing in the town, because at the moment it's currently all shops and supermarkets. So just building the road layout and using some of these modern looking condos that back onto the road. So now using some of these smaller, more traditional British houses to fill this section of the road. I like building these on the curved sections because you can really get them to kind of flow with the road curvature, and I think it looks really good. So here I'm building a hotel as kind of a little focal point where I can add some nice gardens around it. So I'm just going around with some nice flowers and then a few trees, and I'm going to add a little gazebo type thing here using surface painter to add a bit of gravel and a few bushes to finish it off. And here I'm just adding a bit more housing, and I found these buildings that I really love, and I'm going to use them a lot more in a little while. And the color variation on them I think is very realistic, and I really like the peaked roofs as well. Just finishing off this area with some trees to fill in some of the green spaces. So down this quite busy road, I'm adding bigger apartment buildings, some of them old, some of them new, just to fill in the space a bit. And here I'm just planning the road layout for some more houses. I'm going to use the ones that I was talking about earlier. So here I'm adding a large post office just in the area by the road and by the train line, because it'd be very noisy. So I'm not wanting to put any houses there. So I thought I'd put a post sorting facility there. And here I'm adding some of those houses, and on the corners I've added some different sized ones just to fill in the area more. I think the little gardens in these houses are very nice. They save a lot of detailing work, along with the trees that come with the assets. And closer to the riverside, I thought I'd add some bigger, nicer apartment blocks like they've been newly built, because it's a more desirable area, and just a few alleyways in between the buildings. just kind of repeating the same thing. There's a few variations of that house. I've been alternating them. Here by the supermarket, I thought I'd add a few parks just because they're close to the housing, and then also if some parents want to go shopping in the supermarket, maybe the kids can play in the park as well. And I just thought it was quite a central location that would be a good place for a playground. Adding some fences to kind of separate the park and the housing. Just changing this area a little bit because I thought a tiny bit of green space would be okay. And then moving on to the riverfront here. Just again using these modern kind of condo buildings, and closer to the road bridge at the other end and the rail line, I used some kind of older buildings because that area of the riverfront that was nice, it'd be a bit noisier, so there'll probably be less new builds there. Just filling in as much as I can and using a bit of fencing just to make the area a bit nicer. So we finished the town centre of this very quaint British town, and here are some cinematics for you. There's a lot more to do around the town and connecting it up to the main city with more public transport. So if you'd like to see a video like that in the future, please do comment down below and enjoy the cinematics.